What's up, Narwhals, and welcome to Narwhals versus PSSA, Episode 1. This is going to be a really helpful video if you want to increase your PSSA scores because I have some really special sample questions here. The people that actually wrote the PSSA release 2 or 3 questions every year for you to practice with and to get you familiarized with the test. So the questions you're going to see in this video couldn't be better to help you get higher test scores because they're actually written by the people that made the PSSAs. So how's this video going to work? I'm breaking it up into 2 days. If you're one of my students, you're going to do this over 2 days. It's possible your teacher does it differently, but my guys, we're doing it in 2 days, and here's how I have it outlined. Day 1, you're going to read this PSSA passage about kangaroos, clouds, and coffee, and you're going to answer these 6 multiple choice questions about it. Then, in the same video, I'm going to play day 2, and that's going to review the answers. You'll be able to see what you got right, what you got wrong, and get some info about what they're looking for in these questions and their answers. So, like I said earlier, these are special questions because they were actually written by the people that wrote the PSSAs. We're going to get some really good practice in here, and it'll be even better if you try to replicate that really fun PSSA environment. If you in your mind say, I'm going to be focused and I'm going to take this seriously, if the environment is quiet, if you're doing this alone without teacher help, just like it's going to be on the PSSAs, and you have very few resources like just a pencil and a highlighter. So we want this environment to look and feel just like the PSSAs so it better prepares you for them. All right, so here's the sample passage. Just like the PSSAs, I am not going to read it to you. I'm not going to read you the questions either. You got to do this on your own, just like it's going to be on the PSSAs and most of the standardized tests you're going to take. So you want to read these upcoming pages, or you can read them in the packet that I gave you, and then you're going to do your best to try to answer these questions. All right, Narwhals, you should have just read the passage and you should have just thoughtfully answered these questions. If so, you are done for day 1, at least if you're in my class. The next part of the video, I'm going to have a section that says we're moving on to day 2 just to make sure the answers aren't spoiled for you. But then after that, we're going to go through each question item by item, and I'm going to tell you what the correct answers are, what the incorrect answers are, and the people that wrote these tests and wrote these questions have given you some tips about what to look for and explain why each answer is incorrect and correct. So if you have not read the passage and done the 6 multiple choice questions, pause and make sure you do that now. Otherwise, sit tight, hit play, and the rest of this video is going to review those answers. All right, Narwhals, you should have already done the questions and read the passage. This part's going to go over the answers. If you accidentally stumbled into here, make sure you hit pause and go back. Otherwise, here is the answer key for number 1. So you're going to see that this answer key has a couple different answer options on it. It notes what the correct answer is, and it's pretty cool. It also tells you what percentage of kids, when they practice this question, answered each of those things. So number 1 essentially comes down to figuring out what elusive means. If you're lucky enough to know what it already means from your background knowledge, you probably could have answered it correctly. But if you didn't, you still could have used context clues, which is using all the information around a word to try to figure out what it means. So the correct answer for this one was B, which is difficult to observe. All right, so number 2 is one of these complicated, evidence-based selected response questions that usually have 2 parts. So the correct answers were C and C. What you should have done for part 1 is recognize that options A, B, and D were incorrect because there actually isn't evidence in the passage to support those traits. So they couldn't have been the correct answer. For part 2, option C is correct because it suggests that even though she was struggling to travel through the mountains to see the kangaroos, she, quote, didn't let it stop her, which supports the idea that she is persistent. Next up, we have number 3, and the correct answer for 3 is C. What I want to highlight for this question is that the incorrect answers, A, B, and D, they all are either logical or they are supported by something in the passage, but they don't relate to central idea. It's tricky because you might get a question that gives you 4 correct answers. All that info was in the article. So you really need to jump back into the question and figure out, what is it asking me to do? Next up, we have number 4, which talks about supporting an argument with a detail or a reason. The correct answer is B. And here you needed to look at the fact that we are talking about establishing businesses. B definitely talks about how they are beginning to build coffee businesses to help people buy from them, which is why B is the correct answer, because it supports the idea that they are starting businesses. Next up, we have number 5, and the correct answer was D. Number 5 is interesting because it kind of flips one of the previous skills that was practiced. It gives you a specific reason or detail, and then it asks you in the multiple choice questions, which of these 4 is supported by that option above? The correct answer was D. All right, Narwhals, this is question 6, the last one. It's another one of those evidence-based selected response questions that can be a little bit tricky. It's got 2 parts, and if you look at part 2, it actually wants you to select 2 different answers. And that's what I really want to focus on for this question, rather than diving into the details. If you correctly identified that the question was asking you to answer part 1 with 1 answer, and then part 2 with 2 answers, give yourself a pat on the back. That was good. If you also got the answers for part 1, B, and for part 2, B and D, give yourself another pat on the back because those are the correct answers. All right, Narwhals, thank you so much for paying attention and trying your best. This hard work will pay off, I promise you, if you take it seriously and you absorb some of the stuff that we're trying to get into your head. Well, for 2 more questions at the end, I got some bonus ones for you. These are really going to help. If you don't immediately know the answers to these, you should probably figure it out or go talk to a teacher. 1, what are context clues? I did mention it earlier in the video. And 2, what does it mean when a question asks you to support an answer with details? Thank you so much, Narwhals. I hope this pays off when you go to sit down for those PSSAs.